you can begin.
Hi, we're RadicationGames. I'm John Bregman, the producer for RadicationGames. This is Akos Demuth, our designer. This is Chris Box, our artist. And this is Kirsty Frazier, our programmer.
The ancient Greeks called it typhus. In the 18th century, they called it consumption. In the Victorian era, they called it the White Plague. We call it tuberculosis. Play sanitarium and help us fight the world's oldest disease. Become a doctor. Join the battle against tuberculosis. Research treatments. Raise money and learn about the world's oldest disease. Explore the world map. Treat patients from hotspots around the globe. Earn XP by taking on the toughest cases in the most impoverished places in the world. Care for your patients. Receive real-time updates through push notifications. Make life and death moral decisions by managing time and money. Diagnose and treat patients by playing mini-games based on arcade classics. Play sanitarium. Learn about tuberculosis. Help fight the world's oldest disease. Sanitarium.
What you've just seen is a new trailer made by RadicationGames for Project Sanitarium, a serious game made with serious tech. Last September, we were given the opportunity to work with Microsoft and St. Andrews University. Microsoft gave us 2 tech briefs, and St. Andrews University gave us 1 creative content brief. The first brief by Microsoft was they wanted us to create a game for the Windows 8 mobile platform. The second brief they gave us is they wanted us to create a game using their Cloud Azure tools within that service. The target audience for these briefs were Windows 8 mobile and tablet users. St. Andrews University, a team led by Professor Stephen Gillespie, they asked us to create a game based on their mathematical model they used in their last drug trial. And they wanted us to use this model in the form of treating a patient from the point of infection to cure. The target audience for this game was anyone in the medical field or anyone else who is interested in the world's oldest disease. And that's what we did. We created a game where you play as a doctor, you'll meet a patient at the point of infection, through diagnosis, through treatment, and the possibility of cure, not being cured, or even a relapse. All while trying to make it a fun and engaging experience. And that's the key selling point for this game, is to make a game based on hard math and science that's fun. So if we were to get this game fully funded and supported properly, this would not only be a great learning tool, but it could also help in the future treatment of tuberculosis. Now let me turn things over to our designer, Akos Demuth.
Thank you, John. So, as you've seen, our game is currently about fighting tuberculosis. It's essentially roadmap taken with Plague incorporated. We're going to develop this game for tablets and Windows devices. During development, we realized that change is a process, it's not an event. We had to learn to adapt our development processes to the new knowledge we gained on a daily basis. We've also gained some new great influences. For example, our current UI design is influenced by Windows Phone, and the companion in-game is influenced by Cortana from the Halo series. We've already known how important emotional involvement in this game will be, but we quickly came to realize that financial involvement could be just as important. So we proposed that we would donate a certain percentage of our income to TB Alliance, the Global Alliance for TB Drug Development. Now, I would like to ask Chris Box to talk about art.
Thanks, Akos. I'm Chris Box. I'm the lead artist for RadicationGames. We started by looking at stylings from the Windows Phone and developing it into our game. We wanted that futuristic, glassy feel to carry through the main game and the mini-games. We needed everything to be easily accessible on screen because of the small tablet size and easily navigable for players. We want to take these same stylings and pass them through into the mini-games while keeping their own unique stylings. This is why we went for a low polygon design, to make the screen pop and make players want to play. Now I'm going to hand you over to John to talk about sound.
Well, with the audio, we just wanted to create a feedback system that would immerse the player and keep them engaged. With the user interface, we wanted a clean, futuristic, and digital sound where we referenced modern sci-fi films such as the Iron Man series and the Star Trek reboots. For music, again, we wanted another modern electronic feel to go with the images created by Chris. And so with that, wanted that to help motivate the player. And we also wanted to implement dynamic changes based on the player's input, so it would keep them immersed and they could keep, intensely into the game. Now I'll pass you off to Christy Fraser for some programming.
Thanks, John. At RadicationGames, we have been working very hard on combining elements from design, sound, and art to help create 3 mini-games for Sanitarium. We have 2 mini-games that will focus on the educational part while still remaining to be a fun game for the player. These 2 are the Petri dish game, which identifies tuberculosis cells in a Petri dish, and the other one being X-rays, where the player will have to identify lesions within the patient's lungs. The final game focuses more on the treatment of tuberculosis, where the player will have to use a combination of skill and the drugs at their disposal to help destroy the lesion blocks within the lungs themselves. And with that, it will create more effective. The player's ability will have more of an effect on the final outcome for the patient. With all 3 scores coming from the mini-games, this will then be fed back into the mathematical model and then give us the result for the final outcome of the patient. Are they cured or not? We'll be using Azure Cloud tools to help create leaderboards for our players, and thus creating more of a community feel all around. And finally, we'll be integrating Delta DNA for their analytics software. Not only will this allow to help tailor the game to our players, but will also allow us to get the feature of A/B testing. With that, we'll be able to give our players new drugs to play around with and see how they feel within the mathematical model, and thus overall hopefully represent real-life drug trials. I'll now pass it back over to John to talk about production.
So to touch on production real quick, we're using a combination of waterfall and agile. Waterfall allows us to have milestones that make it easy for the client to gauge our progress. It also gives us structured lines of communication. With a unique problem to solve, we had to then switch to agile because we needed the flexibility, change, and iteration that comes with using an agile system. With the team structure, we're a very flat organization, and this encourages input from everyone and creates a sense of ownership for the whole team within the game, so everybody has a vested interest to make this game a success. Now I'd like to switch over and talk to you about the pathway to market. Since we have an unconventional game, we're going to have an unconventional pathway to the market. First, we'd start with advocacy. TB Alliance is very excited about this game, and they see it as an outreach tool that they can use when they go into communities and treat patients. Microsoft has exclusivity deals around the world with universities and hospitals where they only use Microsoft tech. And that's a way for us to have an industry academic collaboration and get the game into the hands of our target audience. Engagement. Our interaction would be through social media, creating an awareness, a buzz, to let people know that TB is still a problem and we all need to fight it. Our involvement would be involved through Delta DNA. We would use the analytics to study how the players are using this game and then fine-tune that for later updates. The monetization aspect is that it's a free-to-play game with a profit split between charities such as TB Alliance and us, the developers. And finally, is the value-added proposition of this game is the mathematical model itself. It gives academics, students, and doctors the ability to plug in different models. And that way they can create new treatments to help fight the world's oldest disease. We want to thank you again for your time. We're RadicationGames. This is Project Sanitarium, and we'll see you in London.